Thank you. Councillor Cordover.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to my colleague, Councillor Bastone. Well said. Well said. I think that we need to make it a priority. And when I heard that list of the 16 swimming pools, the 16 aquatic centres in Tasmania, it beggars belief. And we heard from the acting general manager that the councillors need to provide direction to the council on this. So let me provide my direction. Personally, I would like a staged construction of the Aquatic Centre. I would like to make it a priority. I think it is affordable if it is staged and if it is measured in some of those ways that Councillor Bastone articulated. We did hear from that consultant, Sea Leisure, and indeed one of the most credentialed consultants that one could find, and he told us that for every $1 invested in an aquatic centre, our council area would receive $8 in wellbeing benefits bestowed upon the community. The health and wellbeing benefits are significant. Now, the population of Devonport is 30,629, according to the ABS. Kingborough has 37,000 people. And in May of 2012, according to the Advocate newspaper, Voss Construction was awarded the tender to build Devonport's new $10 million indoor aquatic centre following discussion at their council meeting. The total capital expenditure of that project was $14 million, with federal and state government funds of $5 million each and a council contribution of $4 million. Even Oatlands is getting an aquatic centre. According to their website at the Southern Midlands Council, the total cost will be around $9 million, of which Council has already secured $4 million in grant funding from both the Australian and Tasmanian governments. Council contribution will come from the sale of existing property assets and a loan reflecting the long-term nature of that facility, and Southern Midlands Council has a 10-year financial strategy to absorb that cost, but it's hoped that attendees' increase and operational efficiencies are achieved. I was door-knocking during the council by-election, and as I talked about the need for Kingborough to have an aquatic centre, so many people said, oh, I remember council was going to do that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We should run a competition. Somebody told me about, maybe it was in the 80s, the early 80s, there was a buy a brick, some kind of buy a brick for the swimming pool project going on. We should run a competition for the earliest story in Kingborough about trying to get council to build an aquatic centre, because I heard stories going back to, I think maybe the 70s, maybe the 60s. People in this community have said this is a priority for them, and yet it's fallen on deaf ears at a council for like decade upon decade. Now, as I recall, for Kingston Park, as an example, we're paying about $1 out of every $4 of capital expenditure is going to Kingston Park in this financial year. More spending on Kingston Park than on stormwater for the entire municipality. We spend $1.3 million on turf maintenance every year at this council. So my point is not that we should stop funding Kingston Park or stop funding turf maintenance. It's just that if we have a plan amortised over 10 or 20 or 30 years, if we put this in our long-term financial plan and say, yes, we are going to listen to the community, just like we did about the bylaws, we know that the community feels that this has been a priority for decades, falling on deaf ears, and it's time to change. It's time to prioritise this, make it a staged development. It should be co-funded by the state and federal and council, and make it a 30-year plan. We need to make it a priority because it's only going to get nominally more expensive over time, but the real costs are being incurred right now, because for every $1 we invested in that aquatic centre, we'll get $8 in benefits returned. And what is the cost of not getting the next Ariana Titmus? What is the cost in health benefits for not having a pool? And what's the cost on all of our productivity of getting stuck on the southern outlet because of the traffic congestion, which is contributed to by so many people from our municipality and indeed Huon travelling to Hobart. Now, in this very extensive feasibility study, it made, as Councillor Bastone alluded to, kind of a set of Rolls-Royce assumptions, which were interesting and were good and were valid, but it doesn't really take into account the fact that if we are thoughtful, if we think outside the box, and if we plan for a staged development, we could do this right now. We could start right now. And if Oatlands can do it, then we can too. Thank you.